So here's what happened. They killed Nolan Wells on the boat.
Before we begin, one important clarification. The video you're about to hear is not an official account of what happened to Nolan Wells. It contains individual claims and allegations that have circulated around this case. On this channel, we'll examine those claims carefully and separate what has been officially verified from what remains unconfirmed. If you want accurate updates as this case develops, subscribe, like this video, and turn on notifications. Now, let's hear the claims, and then we'll break down what the evidence actually tells us.
They covered him up with the life jackets. They all knew he was on the boat. They just laid him on the back of the boat and got towed in part of the way. Then they got their boat running and they got on in. And when they got in, they couldn't figure out where they were going to put him or what they were going to do. So they dropped everybody off. Then they went back out to the island that the GPS doesn't show, but they did because they disconnected it. Okay? And none of them had their phones with them when they went back. So there wasn't any trace of them going back. And they dumped the body. They came back, took the boat out of the water, then went over there at 3 a.m. and washed the boat, thinking washing the boat would get all the DNA and everything off the boat. That's what they did. Now, I'm telling you, the stories are unbelievable at this point. You can't make this up. You know, first, it was about leaving the island. Well, that one blew up. Found out 2 people were at the island, saw him. Then, the Coast Guard, Coast Guard call, CETO call. Nolan, oh my God, Nolan, get up. They heard that. Can't make it up. Not making it up. Then there was the phone, Warren's phone. Now, this. And also, last night, we have a bunch of body experts of their body movements in their interviews that they were not telling the truth. That they're body experts. You know, they moved their eyes like that or moved like that or, they looked up or, something. But I'm telling you, the authorities should use these TikTok creators to solve this case. They are some of the smartest people you will ever encounter. So here's what happened.
Now, I don't know who Paw that is, but he just explained what happened in a nutshell. Now, he didn't go into detail like everybody else has already acknowledged that Nolan was probably dead on that boat, and that is why they went the roundabout way trying to figure out what to do with them until they finally came up with the plan to go back and dump his body. As you recall, they saying he was not found in the water. He was found like on the sand. And, they said that there was no way that he could just wash up on the sand in that amount of time. But I want y'all to take a look at this picture here. And you see it says, what in the world is up under them life jackets? It's like they're laying on top of something, covering the bottom of the boat. This is so sickening. Start telling us all what happened to Nolan. You know, all of you are going down, sinking. And at the end of that picture, they had that little black afro thing right there, circled. And so, could that be Nolan Wells on the bottom of the boat, ready to be transported away from all the people on Horn Island so they can figure out what to do with him? Once again, nobody knows at this point, but we know that something has went down. And, you know, shout out to the old white man for telling the truth, or telling what many people feel like is the truth. Because when black people say it, we're always, you know, paranoid, always being dubbed as racist, so on and so forth. But when white people say it, it becomes truth. So hopefully, once again, we'll get the truth. A lot of people are saying that Nolan was killed possibly by those white boys. So we're going to stay focused and vigilant on it and keep bringing information.
Hey, y'all. Hey, I just got back in and bombshell. Why we have a photo of Nolan with Bart and a large group of people. And I'm just going to show you real quick because I have questions. Hold on. Let's look. Now, I have questions because from what the last thing that I heard per Warren, that Nolan was on leaving and went out to Horns Island on the Triton with Wyatt. That's what Warren said. And then how can the video that I just shared with you guys this morning, how could that be Nolan in the video when Nolan is on another dock with Bart getting ready to head out there to Horns Island? Y'all, what is going on? And then Warren, I'm so confused because how are you saying that how is that your friend? How is that your best friend, your brother from Hi, and you're nowhere in the picture? What's really going on? Y'all, this is some...
Because they keep taking it down because they don't want you to see what I have found. Katie has dry snitched, y'all. Here we see Katie's Snapchat where she's wearing a teal swimsuit and she's with a girl in a blue and white striped swimsuit. On this video of the three boats, you're going to see a girl in a blue and white striped swimsuit right here on Bart's boat. And right next to her with the same long wet hair is a girl in a teal swimsuit on Bart's boat. Make sure you have your brightness turned all the way up because here we have Katie in a teal swimsuit and look at her head. She is wearing a white hat. Oh, look, the video of the boat getting towed. Teal swimsuit, white hat. And that's not all, folks. Again, turn your brightness all the way up because right here, we've got somebody wearing red trunks. Oh, and look what we have here. Red trunks. And here's those same red trunks on the shore right after the fight with Tristan. Katie is claiming that she allegedly caught a ride home with somebody named Marty McGrath. It just so happens that a Marty McGrath is the co-owner of the Biloxi Bay RV Resort and Marina in St. Martin. Here it is, and my, that is a massive dock way out in the water. And would you look at that? It's right next to the grandparents' house. Now, in that report with the GPS coordinates, didn't they say that they went southwest towards St. Martin Bayou? Yeah, that's right, it did. And it also took them 45 minutes to get to that boat ramp over there that only takes about 6 minutes on land.
Something changed in the Nolan Wells investigation last week. After weeks of silence, Jackson County District Attorney Angel Myers McElrath finally addressed the growing criticism surrounding her office. But instead of revealing what investigators know, she explained why she can't. She said prosecutors cannot publicly discuss cooperating witnesses, investigative correspondence, evidence being examined, or which claims circulating online are true or false. And that matters, because while investigators remain limited in what they can say, new footage and conflicting witness accounts are creating an entirely different version of Nolan's final hours. One viral video appears to show an altercation. Another account says the person in that confrontation wasn't Nolan. And then there's a potentially much bigger problem, a timeline that may place Nolan alive long after his friends left Horn Island. So let's go through what we actually know and the gap that still has no clear explanation. For weeks, DA Angel Myers-McElrath had remained largely silent. That silence fueled speculation. Last week, she finally responded. Her message was essentially this: the public does not have the same information investigators have, and she cannot simply confirm or deny everything circulating online. She cannot identify cooperating witnesses. She cannot release investigative material, and she cannot publicly validate every claim being made about Nolan's death. That leaves the public trying to reconstruct the case from fragments. And that's exactly where the new footage becomes important. Because the footage may look convincing, but the identity of the people in it is what matters. One of the most discussed clips circulating online appears to capture a tense confrontation on Horn Island. Some people immediately connected that confrontation to Nolan. If it were Nolan, the footage could potentially be significant. But there's a problem. A separate account from someone who was actually there disputes that identification, saying the person at the center of the confrontation was someone else. And that changes everything. The video may show a real confrontation. It may show genuine tension on the island. But unless the person in the footage can be reliably identified as Nolan, it cannot be treated as evidence of what happened to him. That's the first major problem with the viral theory. And then the timeline gets even more complicated. The boat reportedly left Horn Island at roughly 4 p.m. That's the point where the timeline should become simple. But it doesn't. An attorney representing 3 of the friends has continued to make a much more significant claim. 2 people who knew Nolan reportedly saw him alive at approximately 5:50 p.m. If accurate, that would put Nolan alive about 90 minutes after the boat left. Now consider what that would mean. The critical question wouldn't simply be, why did Nolan stay behind? It would become, what happened to him after everyone else left? There's another account that places someone in the area around 7:30 p.m. and says Nolan was already gone. Again, neither account has been publicly confirmed by investigators, but together, they create a potentially important window. 4 p.m. Boat leaves. 5:50 p.m. Alleged sighting of Nolan alive. 7:30 p.m. Account says Nolan is gone. Somewhere inside that window may be the key to the entire case. This is why the new footage matters, and why it doesn't. If the person in the viral confrontation wasn't Nolan, then the video cannot establish that Nolan was involved in an altercation. But it also doesn't tell us what happened to him afterward. The same problem applies to the competing witness accounts. One potentially places Nolan alive later than expected. Another places him absent later that evening. Until those accounts are independently corroborated, they're claims, not conclusions. And the public still doesn't have the evidence investigators are using to determine which version fits the facts. That evidence remains largely out of view. There's another development that has added fuel to the debate. Records obtained through an open request reportedly showed no recorded drowning death at Horn Island itself during the previous 6 years. That does not rule out drowning. It does not prove foul play, but it does challenge the idea that a drowning at Horn Island would simply be an expected or routine occurrence. The waters can still be dangerous. A person can drown even where previous deaths are rare. So the statistic doesn't solve Nolan's case, but it raises a reasonable question. If Nolan drowned, when did he enter the water? And what happened immediately before that? That question remains unanswered publicly. Strip away the internet theories for a moment. Here's what makes this case so difficult. The boat leaves. Nolan is allegedly still somewhere on the island. A video appears online that some believe shows an altercation. Then that identification is challenged. Another account potentially places Nolan alive around 5:50. A later account says he is gone by roughly 7:30, and investigators are holding evidence the public hasn't seen. That's the story. Not one viral video, not one witness, not one theory, a missing stretch of time, and every new piece of information is being judged by whether it can fill that gap. While the internet argues over footage and timelines, Nolan's family reached another painful milestone. August 19th would have been his 19th birthday. His community gathered in Biloxi for a prayer rally that evening. For everyone following the case online, another clip can feel like another clue. For Nolan's family, the central question remains much simpler. What happened to him? They are still waiting for an answer. Not enough to solve the case. The person in the viral footage has been disputed as Nolan. The alleged 5:50 p.m. sighting has not been publicly verified by investigators. The later 7:30 account is also not a confirmed investigative finding, and the complete evidence remains unavailable to the public. But the footage has done something important. It has exposed how much of the public timeline is still uncertain. And that brings us back to the central question. What happened between the time Nolan's friends left Horn Island and the moment he disappeared from the timeline? If Nolan was alive around 5:50, what happened afterward? If that sighting is wrong, when did the timeline actually change? And what evidence do investigators have that could finally answer those questions? Those are the questions that matter. Not every viral clip is evidence. Not every witness claim is fact. And not every unanswered question proves foul play. But the unanswered timeline is real. And until investigators can establish what happened inside that missing window, the central mystery surrounding Nolan Wells remains unresolved. If you want to follow the case as new evidence emerges, subscribe to the channel. And tell me below, which part of the timeline do you think needs the most scrutiny? The 4 p.m. departure, the alleged 5:50 sighting, or what happened after it? We'll see you in the next update.